This video is about a Bluenose model by Bluejacket. It covers old school techniques, upgrades to make the model better, add-ons, research links, and information to complete the model, and a Gloucester tradition, schooner weekend. I wanted my model to represent the arrival of the Bluenose into Gloucester for the Fisherman's Race in 1938. The people on the boat are representative of some of the crew and some of the passengers that might have been on the boat at the time. I had to do a lot of changes on the model. The original model, upper decks, and a lot of the details on the original model didn't match Bluenose. So although I had to do a lot of scratch building, I'm very happy with the results. In this video, we'll cover building the sails, acquiring the figures for the boat, changing the structures on the deck, replacing the parts for the rigging that are easier to use than the original model, creating decals that did not come with the model, designing a stand and a plaque for the model, attaching a commemorative coin to the model. This is the Bluenose model. It's 1/8 inch to the foot scale. The blueprints were copyrighted in 1934, and the blueprint reflected a schooner that could be almost any schooner. I wanted to check to make sure the hull was a match with the Bluenose, so I used this book as a reference. I placed the blueprint design over the original design from the book. The light blue indicates the model, so there was a match between the model and the original design from the original boat. The structures on the deck, however, did not match the Bluenose. So I did some research from the archives of Nova Scotia. There's a wonderful site that has all the information of the history of the Bluenose. There I got pictures of the deck in 1938. From those pictures, I was able to determine most of the structures and their locations. A link for the website will be in the description. Along with the blueprints, there was instructions. These are what those instructions look like. And it has good information on how to build the boat and how to make the parts. There's some pretty good details, but it is definitely old school. There is no laser cut parts, no photo etch parts, no die cut parts. Everything you have to make pretty much from scratch. And besides this, there was a sheet inside that tells you how to manufacture dories for the boat. This is definitely an older technique where you make them out of wood. And on the back was an article of an interview of the captain of the Bluenose, and he described the colors of the boat, which were helpful. I also used research and photographs to determine more of the colors. The model came with dowels, wood pieces. All the wood parts are in the rough form. You'll need to cut and shape them. There are no die cut parts, laser cut parts, or photo etch parts. There was a lot of items in the original model that were out of scale and just didn't fit. I'm not sure exactly when this was manufactured. The model came with a solid wood hull. You'll need to sand it and shape it. You have to use the blueprints to make sure you keep the shape of the hull correct. The most difficult part was sanding the bulkheads to the right dimension. You will spend quite a bit of time sanding it. You'll need to sand 1/32 off the deck in order to add a scribe deck. Adding a better scribe deck. I used this research photo in order to determine the size of the scribe deck. I used a 1/16 scribe deck that I ordered from Bluejacket. The one that came with it was way too small. Painting the hull. I used flexible masking tape from this company in order to mask off the white line on the schooner. When I put down the flexible masking tape on the hull, I gave it a coat of acrylic varnish. That keeps the paint from seeping underneath the tape. And then I painted the bottom of the hull and then the top of the hull. The tape was only 2 millimeters, but I used a small brush and painted close to the tape and then used a larger brush to fill in the larger spaces. I did several coats until it looked just the way I wanted it. Once the hull was done, I removed the tape. And when you remove the tape, it creates a clean line. Once the hull was finished, I needed to add a gold stripe along the side. I used the 1/32 gold tape on the side of the boat to finish the hull. There will be links in the description on where to get the tape and what kind. After the hull was painted, I needed to complete the framing on the bulkheads. I followed the directions in the instructions, painted some basswood, glued it with super glue, used my razor saw to cut it to the proper height. There's a lot of frames on the bulkhead. It'll take you some time. Building the deck structures. I built the structures on the deck according to the photos that I got from the Nova Scotia archives. These are the different pieces that I added. In order to make the gears for the windlass and for the hoist engine, I used wristwatch gears. I was able to buy a bulk buy on eBay. The structures on the stern part of the boat were all created using the reference photos in basswood to match the 1938 boat. The dories on the boat are made of metal. They came with the kit. I added some basswood to make them look more like a dory, and I painted them. I also used the research photos to determine what the other structures on the deck would look like. I added stovepipes based on the photos. These I made out of plastic tubing. The model did not come with any decals, the Bluenose, and any scroll work on the boat. I used Photoshop and reference photos to draw my own. I bought decal paper, and I printed them on my inkjet printer. I attached them to the front of the boat and on the back. After I attached the decals, I applied several coats of varnish in order to lock down the yellow stripe on the tape and also the decals. Replacing the hardware with better, easier to use hardware, I purchased upgrades and add-ons from the folks at Bluejacket. They were extremely helpful to decide what hardware and rigging would be best for the model. They have a current model called We're Here, which is the same scale and has a lot of the hardware that this boat has. I was able to use their parts list and pick and choose the items that I needed to replace. These are the blocks that I got from Bluejacket. You'll see the sizes and the order numbers. These were better and easier to use than the ones that came with the model. The Bluenose blocks and tackle were all painted white, so I spray painted these with white spray paint. These are the dead eyes that I got from Bluejacket. You can see the size and the order number. These seem to be the right size that I wanted. This is the dead eyes with chain plates. The original model didn't have the chain plates. Again, there's the size and the order number. I used this liquid from Bluejacket in order to turn the dead eyes black. In order to make it look more realistic, I sanded the outside of the dead eyes on the chain plates and some of the metal too. I ordered new eye bands for the bowsprit. They seem to fit the bowsprit better than the ones that came with it. The brass chain that came with the model was too large. I replaced it with this one, and it seemed to be more appropriate for the size and scale of the model. In order to tone the chain down, I used this brass black and made the anchor line more realistic. You can see this size of a chain fits better in the chain box on the deck. The running lights that came with the model were too large. I created my own by using some plastic and some paints. Making the sails and the rigging. The kit came with thread for rigging, but I considered it too old, so I bought all new thread from Bluejacket. The model kit came with mast hoops made of brass. I tried to paint them white, but it didn't work very well. Plus, they're very rigid and very hard. Since I knew I was going to put sails on the boat, I made my mast hoops out of vinyl. When they're under full sail, the hoops tend to stretch and take a more oval look. So by using the white vinyl, I could easily control the size and cut it out, stripped it through, wrapped it around the fabric of the sail, and superglued it. At the top of the rigging, I decided to use some small brass hoops, so I bought a kit at the local sewing shop, and I got a good selection of different size brass hoops that I could use. There was no sailcloth that came with the model. I bought some at the local fabric store. I painted both sides with acrylic varnish and hung it on the table to dry with some weights in order to stiffen the material. I used the blueprints and tracing paper in order to create the sails. I put the tracing paper on my window, I put the fabric over the tracing, and I used a pencil to draw the lines to indicate where the sail was sewn together. I used the smallest wire I could find from the arts and crafts store in order to make tiny loops and glue them to the sail. Then I used the rigging thread and threaded it through the loops in order to hang the sails. I used the smallest rigging thread in order to make the ratlines. All the figures on the boat I purchased on an eBay group buy. I got a bunch of workmen that looked like they could be painted and made to look like crew for the Bluenose. So a combination of different HO figures, I was able to create the crew. Some of them were of that period. Mostly it involved painting the figures in a more dull, conservative colors. I searched online, but there doesn't seem to be any schooner cruise that represents a 1938 crew. Building a stand for the Bluenose. I ordered some pedestals from Bluejacket. I found a nice piece of oak at Home Depot that would work perfect with the model. I wanted a simple stand. I didn't want it too fancy. After all, this is a fishing schooner. I ordered a plaque in order to describe the theme of the model, the Bluenose arriving in Gloucester in 1938. You can order them on Amazon, and you type in whatever you want, and you can see it on the screen and then order it. I found an interesting coin on eBay. This is the mast step, a commemorative coin that was made in 1938 to celebrate the fisherman's race. On one side of the coin is the Bluenose schooner. On the other side of the coin is the Gertrude L. Tebow, which was a schooner from Gloucester, Massachusetts that competed with the Bluenose. When I bought this on eBay, there wasn't much information, and I couldn't find much online. But when I was in Gloucester, I visited the Maritime Museum and discovered in their display case was the actual coin that matched mine. I was happy to find out that it was a real thing. I purchased mine for about $15. This is a close-up look of the coin on one side and the other. That covers the details on the model, but there's more. If you love schooners and schooner races, this is a book for you. The title is A Race for Real Sailors. It's about the international fishermen races. It covers the last race in 1938, and it goes all the way back to the beginning. It's a book that I thoroughly enjoyed. It covered all the details, the history, how the races got started, the different boats that were involved, the different personalities, the different captains, where they raced, the courses they raced, a detailed description of each race and how it was won and how it was lost. If you really want a good feel of what these boats were about, then this is a book for you. Schooner Weekend, a Gloucester tradition. Every Labor Day, Gloucester celebrates the racing of the schooners. They have a large assortment of schooners that come to town, from large schooners to medium to small. It's a festival-type atmosphere with things going on for 4 days. There's good food, entertainment, and of course schooners. You can get a close-up look at some of the schooners, and you can also enjoy the schooner parade. The day of the races, the schooners come out for a few hours and sail around the harbor. The schooners are filled with people enjoying the parade, with many local boats participating. After they have the schooner parade, they sail out of the harbor and have schooner races. If you really enjoy schooners, this is definitely a weekend you should see. To find out more about the Schooner Weekend, go to maritimegloucester.org. It has all the information about the history, the schedule, the race, which schooners are going to be coming to town for that year. And be sure to check out the Maritime Gloucester Museum. You'll find great models of the schooners. And when you're in town, also check out the Cape Ann Museum. It has models, artifacts, all the history of Gloucester and the fishing industry. And this picture shows the model display that went to the World's Fair in Chicago. I hope you've enjoyed this video and have been inspired to do your own boat. Good luck and happy modeling. If you're a model builder, check out my 3D collection on iMaterialize.com. Links in the description.